The date was February 6, 2018. The most advanced launch system in the history of the world was venting gas, while hundreds of thousands of people were anxiously awaiting for the flash of smoke, signaling that the liftoff has begun. The payload was unique. Never had something like it been sent into space. Then it happened. The rocket launched, its boosters separated, something we've seen hundreds of times. But then the fairings opened. This rocket launch, which was estimated to be over $90 million, was ferrying a sports car into orbit and into interplanetary space. Let's take a step back. In the early 2000s, entrepreneur Elon Musk, following the sale of his company PayPal to eBay, recognized that NASA had no plans for a manned Mars mission. In a bold move, he conceptualized a plan with a desire to reignite public support for space exploration. He called it Mars Oasis. His vision was to send a small greenhouse to the surface of Mars, along with dehydrated nutrient gel that could be hydrated upon landing to test to see if life could be sustained on Mars. He considered it to be a revitalization in the same sense as the space race in the 1960s, which resulted in 6 manned landings on the moon. Now, understandably, it's pretty hard to send planets into space without a rocket. Elon Musk attempted to buy ICBMs from Russia, but the Russians' high asking price made Musk's plan, and really any launches to Mars, unsustainable. Looking through the data, he realized that the price to build rockets was just 3% of the asking price. With the ability to build all components of the rocket in-house, the businessman calculated that he could cut the price tenfold and still make a 70% gross margin. He could even make more money by creating reusable rockets, in which the first stage boosters would land back at the launch site. It sounded outlandish, but it did not stop Elon Musk. His company, SpaceX, was founded in 2002 to revolutionize space technology, with the ultimate goal of enabling people to live on other planets. Elon Musk said, "It's about believing in the future and thinking that the future will be better than the past, and I can't think of anything more exciting than going out there and being among the stars." There was a time when the participants in the space race were just a handful of government agencies. Today, there are at least a dozen private companies competing with SpaceX. Since its founding, SpaceX has become the top company in the private space industry that it effectively pioneered. In 2008, they launched the Falcon 1, which was the first privately developed rocket to make it in the orbit. The next year, SpaceX sent a commercial satellite into space, and in 2010, it was the first company to return a capsule from Earth's orbit. In 2012, one of these capsules rendezvoused with the International Space Station to deliver cargo. It was the first private spacecraft to do so, fulfilling one part of a $1.6 billion contract from NASA in 2009. But one of the main goals of SpaceX, reusability, has not been successful. Yet. In comes the Falcon 9, a rocket with 9 Merlin 1D engines in the first stage and 1 vacuum Merlin engine in the second stage. These were the first hydrocarbon engines to be produced in the United States in over 40 years, and boy have they been modernized. Yes, you heard me right. The first stage has 9 of these engines in an octaweb setup, and the second stage has the 10th one, which has a special engine bell which makes the engine perform better in a vacuum. The Merlin engine has the highest thrust-to-weight ratio of any boost engine ever made. Using liquid oxygen in RP-1, the Falcon 9 uses cooled fuels in order to pack as much as possible into the rocket. The Falcon 9 at liftoff produces up to 7,686 kilonewtons of thrust. The most amazing part of this rocket is that once it releases its payload, the rocket turns around and burns retrograde in order to enable the rocket to land on a barge out in the ocean or back to the launch pad. The valuable rocket can then be launched again. As of mid-May 2019, there have been 33 successful landings after 39 attempts. The first stage is where 75% of the costs are in launch, saving SpaceX an estimated $25 million for each recovered vehicle. If the awesome ability of a return to barge or launch pad launch is not utilized and the booster is left to fall back into the ocean, then the Falcon 9 can bring up to 22,800 kilograms to low Earth orbit or 4,020 kilograms to Mars. SpaceX's Falcon 9 is extraordinarily revolutionary, but an even more amazing rocket is yet to come. Recognizing the capabilities of the Falcon 9 while it was still on paper in 2005, The Falcon 9 Heavy was proposed in order to provide 25 tons of low Earth orbit capability. In order to lift this much weight into space, instead of creating an entirely new system, Elon Musk and his team proposed to just attach 2 other Falcon 9 boosters to the side of a third Falcon 9 booster. The ball began to roll in 2011 when this was announced to the public, and after 5 years of delays past the predicted 2013 launch, in 2018 the Falcon Heavy was finally ready for its maiden flight. Now it needed a payload. In comes the ever-famous launch of Elon Musk's $100,000 Tesla Roadster with its dummy driver, Starman, on an endless orbit around the sun. Soon, it became a national phenomenon as the seeming absurdity of launching a car into space garnered headlines. But the launch accomplished its 2-part goal. 1, to rekindle public's interest into space, and 2, to test the Falcon Heavy launch vehicle. Following this launch, the Falcon 9 Block 5 was released. This is, more or less, the final version of the Falcon 9 in order to get the ship rated for human passengers. In April of 2019, the Block 5 Falcon Heavy was flown. While it was not as hyped as the original Falcon Heavy, it served as a test flight for the Falcon Heavy Block 5, launching a Saudi Arabian geostationary communications satellite, the Arabsat. There were several accomplishments of this flight. The first accomplishment was that all 3 boosters landed. Second, it was the most powerful operational vehicle by a factor of 2. This launch was even more powerful than the previous Falcon Heavy, meaning that this was the most powerful rocket to take off since the final Saturn V launch in 1973. Let's go over the launch. So, I had the privilege of seeing the Arabsat 6A launch in person, and using a tripod and digital camera, I was able to catch the entire launch. It was postponed 3 times, including one the day before the launch, after we'd been waiting outside for over 10 hours. On Thursday, April 11th, still recovering from the scrubbed launch from the day before, every threat of a cancelled launch made the multi-thousand person crowd boo. But as the timer approached 0, we were all anxious for the launch. And then it happened. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1! We were all ecstatic that our waiting had paid off. As my past self says, "It's bright!" It really was. With the 27 engines burning, the plume of orange fire felt like it was looking into the sun. Realized at this time, we were just starting to hear the rocket. We were around 3.5 miles away from the launch pad, and it took a while for the roar to hit us. At this time, around a minute in the launch, the rocket is just hitting 1,000 kilometers per hour, which is about 621 miles per hour, and it's 8 kilometers in the air, or about 5 miles.
Go, Falcon, go!
Pay close attention to the exhaust. Because the rocket has now hit around 14 kilometers in altitude, the exhaust is beginning to condense and form a cloud behind it.
Up to the atmosphere up there, and it's vaporizing some of the air.
Wow.
Okay, and it keeps rolling. After 2 minutes or so, 2.5 minutes,
Where'd it go?
The other 2 core stages will disconnect.
At this time, the exhaust cloud has completely obstructed our vision. We had no idea where the rocket was and if it was still going, as it looked kind of like an explosion. You can see the live stream. At this point, just 1 minute after the last check-in with the rocket's performance, it is going 3,686 kilometers per hour, or 2,290 miles per hour, and its altitude is 37.5 kilometers, or 23.3 miles. I'm skipping ahead around 20 seconds and zooming in so you can actually see the side booster separation. At this point, the rocket is 60 kilometers in the air, or 37.28 miles. I'm skipping around 4 minutes ahead to the re-entry burn. This burn slows down the side core so that they can safely go through the thicker low atmosphere. After the booster separation, keeping track of the little white dots was very difficult, but once the candles were lit, you couldn't miss it.
Those engines off right there, see?
Okay, good track.
Now we knew where they were. Keeping them on camera, however, was pretty difficult, so I'm skipping to less than a minute later when the side boosters were crashing to the ground at incredible speeds. Then, the engines ignited and it all came to a halt. The whole event took less than 8 minutes, but it was completely worth the week of school missed.
Wait, me? It's boom time!
Yes, it is boom time. Because the side cores were traveling faster than the speed of sound, each of them created a sonic boom, which took over 50 seconds to arrive after the engines ignited.
It should be a sonic boom.
As you can tell by the crowd's reaction, the launch was a complete success. All 3 cores landed on their target successfully, which was a first for the Falcon Heavy. Another success is that both of the fairings were recovered, and that they will be used in a future launch. Thanks to the advancements of these 2 monumentous launches, with the reliability of this amazing system proven, other commercial systems are now ready to go. Some of these systems include the Viasat-3, which is a telecommunications satellite. It is slated to launch in the next few years on a Falcon Heavy. The US Air Force has multiple classified massive payloads on schedule for 2020. On June 22, 2019, the Department of Defense will be sending a collection of 24 satellites on the Space Test Program 2 mission using the Arabsat 6A side boosters. All of these launches will improve the quality of life for those of us on Earth. For instance, the Viasat-3 will have incredibly high internet throughput speeds. The Viasat-3 should have 1,000 gigabits a second. The payloads for the Department of Defense's STP-2 include systems that measure radiation in orbit, which will help in designing better and more powerful satellites and space vehicles. There are advanced weather prediction systems along with the test vehicle for a new green propulsion method. These launches would not be possible if it weren't for SpaceX's Falcon Heavy, and slowly but surely, thanks to the progress granted by this powerful reusable heavy lift launch vehicle, humanity will have the ability to reach across the stars.